Well, we got episode 2 here, something to talk about podcast. And, we survived the blizzard of 2025 here in Missouri.
Snowpocalypse.
I think it was really hard to tell how much inches we got, but my guess would be about 8 inches.
That's what I would say too. Pretty close to that. They were talking like we were going to have 20 inches or something crazy. Like Facebook just blows all this stuff out of proportion. One thing gets shared, and then my dad's calling me like, "We're going to get 5 feet of snow in a day." Like, it's wild.
I think that's just kind of how social media goes, no matter what it is. But yeah, I mean, all week, we're really for a week and a half. I mean, it's pretty much showing. We're going to get snow. We just don't know if it's going to be, 70 inches or if we're going to get 2.
Yeah.
Typically, every year it's kind of like rain. They say, oh, you're going to get rain this day. Well, we'll see it to believe it. But, once it started in, I mean, big flakes coming in sideways. We definitely got hammered with some snow here. And I know personally, I've been out, and I think you've been out in the side-by-side, been ripping around a little bit in the snow, having some fun with the kiddos.
Yep, been sledding and doing all that, pulling them on a car hood.
Yep.
All the redneck stuff.
Oh, for sure. What are your deer cameras been doing here lately?
Pretty dead.
Dead?
I've pulled most of mine, though. I only have a couple of them on.
See, I'm just now, I've been telling you all year my deer season's been basically non-existent. I'm just now getting a bunch of the 2- and 3-year-olds back that I haven't seen since, I would say early September before they shed their velvet.
Yeah, most of mine that are on, I don't even have in the right spots. Like I'm already over 24 deer season.
Yeah.
Like it's time to start doing some other stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, got some traps boiled, got them waxed and dyed, and that's what I'm going to start doing once the snow kind of starts.
Yeah, we're going to start doing some more rabbit hunting, squirrel hunting, coyote hunting.
Now's the perfect time
small
to do
stuff.
it.
Yeah,
maybe that's something we can get out and try this weekend.
That'd be fun. Hell yeah.
It's going to be high in the 20s, low in the single digits, so this snow ain't going anywhere.
Yeah, you don't get a lot of chances to hunt in the snow here in the last 5-6 years. Like, there hasn't been a ton of snow.
Yeah, and it just seems like, I've talked about it with I don't know how many people. It seemed like whenever I was younger as a kid, you would always get that snow like November, December. I mean, you'd always get a little bit of snow. And, growing up as a kid, I remember it just seemed like Christmas time, there was always snow. I don't know if it's because I watched so many movies or if I'm just...
Those are the ones you remember?
Yeah, but it just seemed like you were more apt to have snow on Christmas.
Yeah, we used to get a lot more snow, I feel like, than we have in the last several years. It's definitely been down pretty far. I mean, it seemed like every year you would have a snow where you'd get 12, 14 inches.
Yeah.
A big snow. And we haven't had one like this. This one was 8. We haven't had one like that, and I feel like forever.
Yeah. I think the last time we had like over 6 inches was 2019. We had a pretty good snow. But hell, that's what, I guess 6 years ago?
Yeah, that's crazy.
I guess that is 6 years ago now.
So I know like the school's already called off school again for tomorrow on Wednesday.
Yeah, I mean, the county roads, a lot of them haven't been touched yet.
Yeah.
They focus on the major highways, which they should, and then the blacktop county roads, and then, eventually they'll get to the more remote county roads, I guess.
Yeah.
But, you can only do so much. But with that being said, there's been a lot of shit that's happened, the past couple of weeks. I don't know if you've read much up on the Cybertruck explosion.
Yeah.
By the Trump Hotel. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. We'll just kind of give you the rundown. So basically, a former Army soldier, Matthew Livelsberger, he's a 37-year-old Green Beret from Colorado Springs, Colorado. Basically had some explosive material such as fireworks, mortars, camp fuel canisters in the back of his Tesla truck, or one that he had rented, and went to one of Trump's hotels and blew it up.
Yep. Killed himself first
and then blew it up.
Yeah.
I think it said that he shot himself in the back of the head.
That's hard to do.
It's really hard to do. But if you're a Green Beret and you've been in military that long, you know how to get something done for sure.
It is crazy. for him to be I mean, both of these two, big. I'm not going to say they're terrorist attacks, because I don't know if that's quite the right word for it.
There's been a lot of news sources calling them
the
that.
media is calling it that, but we got these veterans out here that are pretty much going against the country. Like, I don't know what the epidemic is of that. I think a lot of it goes back to the same mental issues we're seeing with the whole country. Yeah. There's so much.
Well, with them, they've got the PTSD and all that stuff.
And it's terrible. I've got two of my closest friends that deal with it, and it's real, and it is difficult. They see some wild stuff over there, but you don't think it would make you go against your own country like that.
Yeah, for sure. And you kind of brought up the thing that happened on Bourbon Street down in New Orleans. They came out. I know there was a lot of speculation at the beginning. It happened within I think 42 hours. I know the time zones are a little bit different. I don't know if it was 42 hours, but I know the time zones are different between California and New Orleans. But Chris Rye, FBI Duty Assistant Director, said Thursday that the officials have found no definitive link between the New Orleans attack and the truck explosion in Vegas.
They said that the vehicles were rented from the same company, but that was just like a weird deal. They don't think it was any kind of.
Yeah, it was through.
They weren't
and
connected.
I didn't even know it existed, but it's called Turo. And
I never heard of it either.
I didn't know that you could rent your personal vehicle to let somebody else drive it.
Yeah,
that's what that company is. I didn't even know there was such a thing, which, for us out here, we don't even have Uber or, any of that shit here in remote rural Missouri. So, it was pretty interesting that they both, of course, you got all the conspiracy nuts out there, and, we like to go down rabbit holes ourselves, but, that came out, Turo, that's where they both got the vehicles from, and, that rabbit hole kind of opened up to where people were like, they were trying to connect it. And
I know, like, Trump he came out when it very first came out, and then he wanted to blame it on immigration and them coming across the border and it being an illegal alien, but that wasn't the case.
No, well, both of them were had been in the military served for a long time.
Yeah, I hate to see him stir the pot like that, getting ready to start his next term, which I have a lot of hope for, and I know a lot of people do. So
yeah, I've seen that too, and it's like, why would you? I mean, obviously, immigration is an issue, and what has happened at the border has been not great.
Terrible.
But, I don't know why you'd come out and make a statement like that when it's literally two U.S. citizens that have served your country.
Yeah.
And it made no sense to me.
Yeah, you got to get your facts straight before you start saying stuff like that. I mean, it's just a bad look.
Oh, for sure. And he already gets a lot of bad looks on the shit that he says.
Love his policies, love a lot of the things he's doing, but yeah, he needs to kind of tone it down a little bit, get your facts straight, and then say something. But
yeah, and there was a there was a little thing that popped up, and I know one of the biggest podcasts was the Sean Ryan podcast.
Mm-hmm.
He had a guy. He did I guess you'd call it an immediate podcast, where an emergency podcast or whatever, but he basically had a guy on that had said that this Matthew Liversberg had reached out to him and had pretty much said that he'd been getting tracked and followed by, I think, Homeland and the FBI or CIA, whatever, that he knew all this information about a certain bombing that he, in the military had partaken in Afghanistan, which killed a bunch of civilians and all this other stuff. And I guess he emailed in and was pretty much saying he was going to try to flee to Mexico, but he doesn't think they'll let him cross the border. And then the next thing you know, this happens.
Yeah.
And
do they have any proof that any of this stuff was actually happening, or it's just kind of his word?
So that's the thing. Sean Ryan ended up coming out and doing like an apology, because I guess he didn't have all the facts straight. Which I don't really know how you can. I don't really blame him for doing it, because when you nobody already doesn't trust the government as it is.
Everybody's looking for a reason.
And then you have a Green Beret reach out and, pretty much saying all this stuff. Sean Ryan has a military background.
Yeah.
I think he's a Green Beret too. So when you have somebody like that has all the credentials, this huge, those are some of the most trustworthy people, out there.
For sure.
They've got the training and they've got all that stuff, and what they've done for the country, you can never thank them enough. But, so basically he sent this email to a guy, and then the guy reached out to Sean Ryan. They did a podcast, and I listened to it, and a lot of the shit was crazy. I mean, just absolutely crazy.
Yeah, I listened to it too, and I seen like what it was clipped as, and then I was watching, and I'm like, a lot of this isn't making sense to me. Like, I want to see what the proof is that this is actually happening, and there wasn't a lot of proof to it. So I was like, maybe it's just this guy saying that, and that kind of seems like that was the case. Because if this was government related, they're not going to blow you up with fireworks in the back of a truck.
Oh, for sure.
That's not what was going to happen.
Well, and with him, with his training background, if he wanted to make a bomb that would go boom, I'm sure he could have made a hell of a bomb that go boom. But instead, you got fireworks and
but
all this.
He did injure like 7 people, though, didn't he?
I think there were minor injuries to 7 people. But the craziest part about the whole thing was, it blew out the windows of the Tesla truck, obviously.
Yeah.
It didn't damage the body of the Tesla truck. And it didn't blow out any of the windows of the hotel.
Yeah, I know that at first, I think Elon Musk was kind of freaking out because he thought it was some kind of something wrong with the car and made it exploded. Yeah. But that wasn't the case at all.
Speaking of Elon, did you read up on some of the stuff on how they found out who this guy was? So basically, and I didn't know this, which, we're not, I guess, I'm not really big into the electric vehicles anyways. Plus I can't afford a Tesla. But so what happened is Elon was able to, well, I shouldn't say Elon, Tesla, his company, they were able to trace this guy's footsteps through going through chargers where he'd stopped and, I guess fueled up or whatever. And
charged up.
I guess they have cameras in that, and they were able to see the vehicle that he was in. And I guess, in a Tesla, there's cameras everywhere, which there would almost have to be, now that I'm thinking about it, because it's got so many sensors and stuff on it. Hell, they drive themselves and all this other stuff. But they've got cameras in there, and he was able to identify, like, pulling up footage, I guess, of the guy in the vehicle. So it's like, I don't know how I feel about that.
No, I'm not crazy about that at all. If that's a saved video, that, that stuff shouldn't be happening.
Yeah, because, I mean,
invasion
what
of
it
privacy.
Does, for sure. It's a privacy issue for sure. But I guess the information just gets sent to a database or something, and Tesla can access it.
And for how long do they save them videos, though? Like, how far back can you go?
See, and that's one thing that I haven't looked into, and I don't think a lot of people thought about that until this came out, and they're like, well, Tesla has helped us out a lot figuring out, tracing the guy's footsteps. It's just crazy that they got everything on video, plus they can go in and access that information.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of privacy, I feel like, breaches there, for me.
I'm a fan of Elon, and I think that he's a very smart guy, and he does a lot of good things all over
sure.
globally. Like, with all the Ukraine stuff happened, he sent all them satellites over Ukraine so they could have internet.
Yep.
Like, he does a lot of good things, but that is something I'm going to have to research that a little bit more and kind of see what all that entails, because if they can go back and pull video out of any Tesla vehicle, then that's kind of scary.
Well, it's the same thing with Apple. You have, and I'm sure you've heard of some of the cases where, people, the police department or whoever's wanting to access somebody's phone. Apple's the only one who can open that phone.
Yeah.
So I guess there has to be a warrant and all this other stuff, and Apple still can say no. But then immediately Tesla's like, yeah, we'll help with this.
Yeah.
It's just like, you got Apple, who doesn't ever let anybody in somebody's phone unless they get every sort of document as far as a warrant to get in. Sometimes people still don't get access to the phone, and then you have this issue, and boom.
Maybe there's some laws about it that we just don't know about, or maybe this is something that's so new that
Well, this
nobody's
is-
just
This
used
is
to it.
This is way above our heads.
Yeah.
Like we have no idea anything. But I thought that was super
I've never even
interesting.
been in a Tesla vehicle.
I haven't either. I've seen videos of people in them,
They're pretty fast. They
Yeah.
look cool.
yeah.
We drive too many miles around here. It's not feasible for us.
Well, and like the Tesla truck, I don't know if you've seen it, but Bryce Sparks, Whiskey Biz,
Yeah.
he's building a Tesla
Razor
right now.
It's
It looks
he showed me
badass.
pictures the other night. It's pretty sick.
Yeah, it looks badass. That'll be cool to see kind of what he does like with the interior because it's all just the stock Razor underneath of it. But that'll be pretty sweet once he gets it finished up. But he's always been smart with that shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, so anyways, Sean Ryan, apologized about the Matthew Livelsberger, that episode and all that stuff. I think they've kind of figured out that wasn't correct.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where it came from. It just seems like that's kind of
I wonder if they still have the podcast up or if they took it down.
I'm not too sure. I haven't looked at that. And pretty much his deal that he came out with, he said, if I said anything or did anything disrespectful to dishonor him, I apologize immediately. And like I said, I don't blame him. It's cool to see that, any other time a news media would get that kind of, information and they
Yeah.
would be the ones talking about it. It's kind of cool to see the mainstream, just the independent podcasters kind of getting that shit. And, there's always going to be goof ups.
Well, it's the new form of media.
Oh,
I mean,
for sure.
The days of sitting down and watching your TV on Channel 7 News, or CNN. CNN's falling apart.
Yep.
Fox, I don't think their ratings are great either. People are this is the new form of media. TikTok,
I think you're right.
YouTube.
I think people are just getting away from that, and with the phones and everything, making it so accessible. You can pull it up on YouTube, and you can watch all your favorite people, and don't have to tune into the 7 o'clock news or whatever. So
Yeah. So on the back to that, the guy in New Orleans who they killed 15 people, right? And there was like 30 something injured or something.
as of right now, I think the total's 15.
15.
It could grow from there.
Some people are still in critical care, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah, so the guy from New Orleans, havoc there and killed 15 people. They're saying it's self-ratification. There was a bunch of online sources places he'd been looking at stuff for ISIS and kind of radicalized himself on it.
Yeah,
So
I'd seen where they.
How was that stuff so available to the public where you can still get on that? I mean, ISIS was supposedly destroyed.
Yeah.
They took the territory over and stuff. So how are they still affecting our lives when it's not even an organization anymore?
Yeah, I think the area was taken over, but I think you're always going to have members of ISIS, and I don't know exactly what led him to, I guess, pledge his allegiance to ISIS, but he did have the ISIS flag. They said
In his truck, yeah.
flying on the back of his truck. I don't know. Like you said, 15 people were killed at this point. 30 more were injured. I know I watched the video of kind of what took place, and dude, it was crazy.
So
Absolutely devastating.
they say that it's this new lone wolf mentality because nobody actually tried to get him to join ISIS. He kind of did it all himself. There was no history of stuff before. There was no proof of him, doing anything crazy before this. So there was no way to plan on it happening. So how do you stop something like that?
I don't think there's any way you can stop something like that.
The only thing I can think of is why is this information out there just ready for him to be able to find it?
Yeah, I don't know.
There's got to be some kind of policing of that kind of stuff on the internet.
Well, for sure. And I'd read a few things that they had interviewed the guy's brother, and pretty much his brother had spent the last 18 months with him. I guess their dad had a stroke or something, and they were like living and whatever close together for about 18 months. And he said he did not see anything different with him. He said his religion, because he was Muslim, he had gotten more religious. I know he'd had a couple of divorces. One was like in 2010 or 12, and another one was in 2022. But his brother said, I didn't see anything out of the normal with him to, have any indicator that he would do something like this.
Yeah, I think what an interesting thing about it is you can kind of bring up the debate of how much freedom that you're willing to give up as a society should be traded off for security. Because soon as you start some kind of new security, like I'm saying, policing on the internet or something, you're giving up some of your freedom. So it's hard to find that balance of freedom to security.
Yeah.
And I think this is a big piece of it right now. It killed 15 people because this wasn't policed enough to be able to see that he was on these kind of sites or threads or, wherever he was finding this stuff.
Yeah. Well, and just because you're looking at a site or something, I guess there's, this is different. Because I think everybody's just kind of confused because nobody's seen anything like this. Like you were saying, he went and he was pretty much a lone wolf that decided to pledge his allegiance to ISIS and then decided to do this over, I guess, a religious almost view with ISIS.
So, like, if you're saying that a big thing now is the school shootings.
Yep.
I can tell you ways to stop that.
Mm-hmm.
There's ways to fix that problem in the United States. But something like this, he wasn't using a gun. He didn't use a bomb. He ran people over this truck. Like, there's no stopping this.
Yeah, and then he proceeded to get out and shoot people.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. He went in doing this knowing he wasn't going to make it out alive.
Yeah.
Because, you run through a crowd of people, and then you get out and you have a shoot-off with police. He injured two of them. I think they said both cops were stable, that they're doing okay. But it's just one of those things like there's no way you can stop somebody from doing this.
No.
And they were talking about, I guess some of the barriers and stuff. It was one of the areas in
wasn't
the
set
city
up correctly
that hadn't been fixed yet.
Yeah.
They had just, I guess, flimsy cones or flimsy barriers out that a vehicle can drive over.
The mayor had came out and said that she'd messed up, basically, that shouldn't have been like that.
Well, because, the Super Bowl's being held there.
Yeah.
And they don't have that done yet.
Mm-hmm.
But who would think? I guess you got to try to prepare for something that, may not ever happen that you think, but
it scares you when you think about going to events like that.
Yep.
Because, just like something like the Super Bowl, you're going to probably have 100,000 people there plus.
Yeah,
maybe more.
You can't have enough security or officers at that to try to make it completely safe.
No, but you get 100,000 people. There's going to be a crazy person in that group.
Oh, for
sure. Way more than one.
Yep.
Or there's going to be somebody in that group that is contemplating suicide, and this is basically an assisted suicide that he was just killed a bunch of people.
Yeah, basically, to kind of go over it, he pledges allegiance to ISIS. I think there was internet videos that, were coming out. And I was looking at some of the security footage that they have of him driving around that truck. He's just flying up and down roads pretty much all night and all early morning. But basically, Biden came out and said that, he was inspired by ISIS and expressing a desire to kill. So the ISIS flag was found in his vehicle, citing information from the FBI. He added that no one should jump to the conclusion about the investigation, that this is going to pretty much, inspire a series of more attacks.
That's what scares you.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. I think that's why when that incident happened in New Orleans and then the other one in Vegas, people are like, oh, shit. Mm-hmm. Like, is there a bunch of these that are going to start happening? And they're pretty much coming out and saying that, no, that's not what's going to happen that they think.
I think that my main takeaway from this whole thing is we have to be better for our veterans.
Oh, for sure.
We have to do something about this. This is an issue. Like, these guys are coming home and they've been through a lot and seen a lot, and they're not getting the help that they need.
Yeah, and you have to say that a lot of PTSD had to have gone on in this.
For sure. These guys probably didn't even want to do this. It's probably something in their head that they just had to do. You know, it can make you think crazy things.
Yeah, and
changes chemicals in your brain.
I don't know if it was just them. You know, maybe they had some overseas experience where maybe they did have to, you know, kill people. You know, war is war. And maybe they were trying to just get that demon out of their head.
Yeah, it's not something that just like goes away either. Like it lingers on, and it's kind of like a roller coaster. You're gonna have highs and lows. You know, like my friend that is going through it. You know, he's been out of the military, I don't know, like 12 years, 14 years. You know, and he still has times where he struggles with it. I just don't know what you do about it. Like we got to do something to be better for our veterans, because there is things that we can do, we can be doing, but instead we're sending all our money over to Ukraine and
a bunch of other countries.
Yeah.
When, you know, I think
when our people are suffering here at home.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of been a lot of light has been shown on that the past, you know, couple years with the Biden administration sending money to all these foreign countries, and hurricanes, you know, wildfires, and everything, you know, I mean, you name it, Hawaii, you know, California wildfires, and then you have the hurricane that hit I don't know how many states down south.
Yeah.
And when you have a government-funded organization like FEMA that shows up to Hurricane Helene victims and says, we don't have any money to give you, it's like, where the fuck does the money go?
Yeah, we had plenty of money to give to Ukraine.
Yeah. Or
like
any other country.
It was like 60 billion or something like that.
Yeah, and they're trying to give them more as we speak.
It's wild.
You know, and
We have to. I mean, I understand that America, as the forefront of planet Earth, like we need to be that kind of overseeing figure and help out people when we can, because we have been successful.
Yep.
You know, that's kind of what you do. But there has to be a line too, where it's like, hey, we got to take care of ours.
Yeah. You know, I mean, all that money, you know, that could have, you know, built houses for the homeless. That could have helped, you know, Army veterans get help that they really need. That could have helped a lot of people here in America that need help. But instead, you know, some of that money I read Ukraine went to like some of their government officials, like their salaries and stuff. It's like, I'm sure you guys have made enough money. If it's anything like over here, I'm sure the way that you invest money and hit the stock market, you're balling over there. I mean, that's what, you know, Nancy Pelosi and all them do over here.
You have $100,000 a year job and you're worth $50 million.
Yeah.
Those numbers don't add up very good.
So, and I understand, you know, we'll send money to help different countries and stuff, but when you have devastating things happen like what happened here in the United States, and there's no money and there's no help given out, I mean, people were just fed up with it.
Makes you sick. And I think that's some of the reason why, you know, during this election term, there was such a stand-up of getting back to common sense practices. Because a lot of this stuff is just getting crazy.
For sure. And, I mean, Trump won all the swing states plus the popular vote. I think that was the first time.
And he won the majority of the younger voters too. Yep. Young men, and which had completely changed from his last election.
Yeah. And it wasn't just young white men, it was black men, Mexican men. You know, there was a variety.
He won a county in Texas that had been Democratic for like the last 100 years. It's the first time it had been won in like 100 years.
Yeah.
And they voted Republican. I mean, that's a big change.
You know, and just the way that the country got down, you know, the past 4 years, you know, really when COVID hit, you know, shit, I mean, it hit the fan. I mean, it got really bad. Obviously, I'm not smart enough to know what all the necessary steps should have been. I just know that the economy and everything just got so bad, and where the money was going when people needed help over here, and I know we spend more money than we have. That's why we're over $30 trillion in debt, and I still don't understand how that can be a thing where you just keep printing more money, and they have the audacity to give us credit scores.
Yeah, they just keep printing the money. I think that the younger generation, especially like from the last election, the kids are getting out of college, and they're getting out of college with all this debt, and then they're going to get a job that doesn't pay enough, and like, hey, we can't afford to buy a house anymore.
Yeah, or they're going to get a degree, and when they get out, there's no job for that.
Yeah, there's no job for that.
I know a lot of my friends, and that was pushed on us, even like elementary, middle school, high school, you got to go to college if you want to make some of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Now you got all these kids that are out there in trade schools, just flat killing it.
Yeah.
And,
if you're willing to be any kind of laborer, you can make a killing right now.
Oh, for sure. And they're talking about, the age of like plumbers and electricians and stuff is,
concrete
55,
workers.
60 years old and plus. If you could get in with one of those 60-year-olds and work with them for 5-10 years, then you can go out and do your own thing and probably make however much money you want. I know when COVID happened and all the houses were being built because we had the low interest rates, and we had a hailstorm come through. It was March 31st date, and I have several contractors insured, and I couldn't get a bid from any of them because they were so busy.
Yeah.
And they were like 2 years out from being able to do anybody else. Like they couldn't take bids anymore.
Wild. I've had a couple friends that were going to build a house, and they called to try to get a foundation put up, and they're 2 years out on concrete. Like, that's wild.
Yeah, I actually had to call my old boss because I used to do construction, and we put the roof on myself, ourselves.
Yeah, I end up, I do pretty much everything myself because you can't find anybody to do anything around here.
Yeah, and you want to pay local people to do it, but whenever they're so backed up, you got to find it's got to get done.
It's got to be done. Yeah, you can't wait for 2 years on a roof. Like
no, not especially not after that hailstorm. I had skylights, everything else busted out, so I had leak in my closet, tearing up drywall and everything. So I think trade school people, if they, it's getting more and more popular. Beforehand, back when I was in high school, if you went to trade school, oh, well, you were kind of looked at weird because you weren't going to college. But then, you have them going out welding, making
more money than people go to college now.
Making, over $100,000 a year, and, electricians and all that stuff. And, you're going to college for 4 years. And don't get me wrong, I know a lot of people that went to college for 4 years that are doing very well.
Yeah.
But it's
there's there's a need for that too.
But there's ones that went to college, kind of screwed around and got a degree that I couldn't even tell you what it is.
Sociology.
Yeah, and then now you're working construction or doing something else, which is great, but you're also stuck, $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 in debt.
Yeah, and that fine arts degree doesn't pay very well.
And that college tuition or that college debt ain't getting paid off by taxpayers, from what I've seen the past 4 years. It ain't going to happen.
No, and it just costs so much money to live now. You got to make good money. If you think back to our parents' generation and even a little bit before that, if you had a man that had a job, just a normal job at a factory, he could have a nice little house in town.
Yep.
His wife was a stay-at-home mom. They had a couple kids, had a decent vehicle. You can't do that anymore. It's not possible.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Back then you could have a stay-at-home wife. Now, the women are kind of looked at it. You got to work.
Yeah, now it's just like, hey, what do you do for a living? Everybody, what do you do for a living?
Yeah, that's the first thing that in the dating world, a woman will ask, what do you do for a living? And yeah, it's just to the point where you have to have two incomes. You can't just make it on one unless you have one hell of a job. In today's economy, you got to be doing really well to be able to afford to pay for everything.
I remember, if somebody made $100,000, you thought of them as rich.
Oh, for sure.
Like those people got a lot of money, but now I feel like it. I'm saying it's above average, but it's not unforeseen. Like a lot of people have $100,000 a year jobs
and can still struggle.
Yeah, and working at factories and still struggle.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that was kind of a smooth transition into the to the workforce there.
Just got off and
but
kind
anyway,
of wandered.
so back to back to what we were talking about with the Cybertruck bomb and the guy down in New Orleans. So what's kind of your take? What do you think about those?
It's a bad situation that, I just don't know how you prevent it. There's got to be something done in this country with. I don't know if it's that there's not enough education about mental health now, or what the problem exactly is. It's way above my head, but we got to do something to fix this mental health crisis. And it's just that life's too good for a lot of people now, and they don't know struggle. So when they do hit struggle, they can't handle it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Mental health is definitely a big issue with, whether it's depression or obviously with these guys, PTSD had to have been a factor for sure. We still don't know a lot of information yet. There's still a lot of things that haven't come out as far as like a motive, whether it was an out.
I think both of them had a manifesto, and one of them had written 2 different letters too.
I think you're right. I think that was the guy in Vegas. He pretty much.
I haven't seen where any of it came out about what it said about it, but it did say that I think they said both of them had a manifesto.
So basically, an FBI special agent in charge, Spencer Evans, he told this at a news conference, and this is for Matthew Livelsberger in Vegas. He said, although this incident is more public and more sensational than usual, it ultimately appears to be a tragic case of suicide involving a heavily decorated combat veteran who was struggling with PTSD and other issues. So that was one of the deals, and they said that they've investigated it, and I like to try to take the FBI at their word. Even though they've definitely given us reasons not to.
Yeah, it's hard to trust any kind of government stuff now.
But with all the speculation stuff that was circling around, with the Sean Ryan podcast, you had this whole bizarre scenario with, the Chinese have, submarines off the East Coast, and they're the ones flying the drones up in the air, and obviously they're buying land next to all of our military bases, and then you had the spy balloon.
What happened? I mean, that deal just kind of like disappeared about the drone things. You're not hearing anything about it now.
Yeah, and I had listened to something, a guy was talking about that this had been happening around this time for like the past 4 or 5 years, that drones have just appeared like in that area at like the same time every year. But this year there were so many, that's why it got, I guess, blew up.
Mm-hmm. A lot of people were seeing them.
Still don't know what the hell it is.
Yeah, I feel like the government. I mean,
I'm
sure
government
it's
definitely knows.
It's a security risk, so they are not, coming out with it. But I feel like it's something the public should know.
The public should know a lot, but the government. I personally don't think it's anything. It's not a foreign country, mm-hmm. because if it was, the government would be doing something about it, I would think.
Yeah, I don't think it's an immediate threat to our well-being.
Yeah.
Or there'd be some stuff being done about it.
I've heard everything from, it was a nuclear, missile, or a lost nuclear missile, and they were trying to, see pick up the radiation to find it.
Yeah.
And, it was stolen. It was supposed to be in Ukraine, but it got stolen. And you can't believe just everything you see on the internet. Obviously,
there was a guy that was on Joe Rogan that was talking about it, and he's got some really good connections high up in the government. And Joe asked him if there was any truth to the nuclear thing, and he said no. He's talked to a lot of people, and that's not in play at all. They don't think. Yeah,
but I mean. You have that with pretty much everything that comes out. There's so much shit that gets said out there, and a lot of people believe it. Mm-hmm. Anymore, I try to take things with a grain of salt until something actually comes out that's factual.
It's probably aliens.
I guess it could be what they're calling now UAPs, but I don't know. I do think it's really odd. I think the American people should be notified what it is. The government obviously knows.
Even if it's if the government, if it's something from a different country and they don't think they're really doing any kind of damage or harm, if they pick up one little thing, that could be, you take that over a whole bunch of drones, they each pick up one little thing, that could add up into one big thing.
Yeah, for sure. And, then you got people saying that it's just a distraction for something, else that the government's doing.
Yeah.
But I was kind of reading, a lot of people are like, why don't you just shoot them down? Why don't you just shoot them down? Well, it's it's an unmanned aircraft, and I'm currently studying, for my commercial drone pilot's license, and there is a lot of laws and regulations on shooting drones out of the sky. Like, you can get thrown in jail pretty damn quick over it.
Yeah, it's about like getting your pilot's license, I think. And
it's pretty much like an intro into pilot. I'm not going to say it's, I guess it would be like a very small intro into what it takes to be a commercial pilot's license. Yeah. But yeah, it's
this drone technology they got now is insane.
Things
they can do. Have you seen it over in China where they're doing having all the drones light up and they show dragons in the sky and stuff?
Oh yeah, they've been doing that for a long time.
That is wild.
What they can do, and you can control them with that many drones. I'm sure the military has it too, where one controller can control hundreds or if not thousands of drones.
Yeah.
It's all about the technology and stuff in them. But yeah, the drone thing is cool. Just like in Missouri this year, they passed the law to if you want to use a drone to recover a deer that's dead, you can now do it. And those thermal drones, I had one come out this year, and those thermal drones are freaking sweet. It makes me want to buy one, but I don't have $10,000 just laying around to purchase one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you could probably, if you found deer for people, you could make some money off of it, but that's a pretty big investment.
You'd have to find a lot of deer for several years to be able to make that.
People aren't going to be paying you $1,000 a piece to find their deer.
Yeah, what else do you? Well, I mean, $350 to show up, and then another $100 if they find the deer.
That's what it is.
So if they recover a deer, it's $450.
Damn, that's pretty good. You could, that might be worth it if you got your name out there.
Yeah, I mean, that's what the deer drone recovery guys do. So that's what a lot of people are basing their prices off of. I think it's.
But it's just for recovery. You can't use it to do any kind of scouting or anything.
Correct. I think you can go in after deer season and look and see, kind of what the population is on your property. I don't think that's illegal. I do know it's illegal to go in, find the deer, and if it's not dead, going in and
killing it
off. That's illegal for sure, because you're using a drone to.
That'd be pretty hard to catch somebody doing that.
Well, and what's going on.
Oh, I'm sure.
That was a big reason why a lot of people didn't want it to take place. Didn't want the law to pass in Missouri, but you got all sorts of lobbyists. I'm sure DJI was paying a lot of money into a lot of these states to get it passed. And they're even talking about at some point going out to like out west and legalizing drones to be able to fly in the mountains and pick up the deer or animal, whatever, and pack it out or fly it out for you, so that way you don't have to pack it all out.
That would be handy.
That'd be badass.
Yeah.
There'd be a lot of outfitters that'd be happy about that.
Yep. And a lot of rich people go out there and do it, so they got the money to pay for something like that.
Yep.
Yeah,
but
if you're going to them outfitters, you got money anyway.
Which, hell, they've already got. You can spend $50,000 right now and put all the fertilizer and spray all the crops and everything. A lot of people do that. I know there's a couple new businesses here just in our area that opened up this past year. They're getting more and more popular.
Mm-hmm.
I would be surprised if a lot of these things that we've been talking about, I'd be surprised if they're not legal within the next 2 to 3 years.
Well, and like this year, I know during our planting season this past year, we got a lot of rain. And we got a lot of rain early. It really dried up after that. But at first, it was kind of wet, so they were having trouble getting out and spraying the crops.
Yep.
So there's a guy who sprays from a plane, and that guy was everywhere this year. You seen him all over the place.
Yep.
He had a ton of work. So that is going to turn into a drone.
For sure. For sure.
I would say in the next 2 or 3 years, we're going to see that here.
Yeah, I think the issue with the drone is, they say, a drone, I guess, is more efficient because you don't have, I guess, in a spraying aspect, you don't have tire tracks going through a field from a big boom sprayer. But I feel like, how many batteries would you have to
I don't know.
Like, say you're going to go spray, 1,000 acres. How many batteries? I feel like you would have to have so much in batteries. But if you're doing it for a living, you're probably making pretty good money, so you can, a tax write-off for more batteries. I just think it would take so much longer going out there and doing it than.
I know I'd read a thing the other day. It was talking about Elon's coming out with a new battery that's supposed to be way, way better than all the other batteries. So for his electric car. So it could be, I'm sure next 5-10 years, that technology is going to explode too.
Yeah. And with the batteries like that, I have yet to see. I know one of these days I'm going to see it, and I'm not excited about it, but I'm just going to be anxious to see, if there's a client, like let's say one of these electronic vehicles, they smash a deer, and it tears up the whole front of the vehicle and it tears up the battery. I'm anxious to see how much some of them batteries are going to be and how many of those vehicles are going to be totaled out because the batteries are so damn high.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it yet.
The battery's going to be worth more than the rest of the car.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet. And the windshields, they have so many. That's why a lot of the auto insurance is going up, because these windshields, obviously things are being cheaper, made cheaper. Ford, you have aluminum bodies. If you hit something with that, it's going to screw the whole damn thing up. But like the windshields and stuff now, you'll notice that, it's not a couple $100 to go replace a windshield.
No.
You're talking about a couple $1,000 in some of these vehicles, because they've got so many sensors, and, they got to be calibrated. There's a multitude of things that are causing insurance rates to go up, but those are a lot of them.
What do you think about from the insurance side of it? Like they're starting to do this deal where with Teslas, they'll pretty much drive themselves on the highway. So this is just going to keep going forward as long as it's successful. 10, 15 years from now, do you think that could affect the insurance market for vehicles?
No, I don't think so, because you're still going to have physical damage coverage, and somebody still has to be in the vehicle to operate it.
Mm-hmm. Right now, they got semis and stuff that drive themselves.
Well, people are still going to have insurance on the vehicles, and Tesla's just going to be on the hook for a lot of issues if their vehicles start ramming into each other.
Yeah. It's
not just Tesla, it's going to go into other vehicles and things like that. But yeah, the vehicles driving themselves, that's scary.
It'd be hard for me to do it, but man, I hate to drive.
Yeah, but I couldn't trust a computer driving, even though the computer's probably a safer driver than any of us.
You'd want your hands right there by the wheel so you could, and that's what you're supposed to do.
Yep.
But it'd sure be nice if I could just jump in the vehicle and fall asleep and wake up in Florida.
Yeah. Then that would take out the having to fly and deal with the airports and all that stuff too.
Yep.
But yeah,
we're going to see that in our life. I guarantee you in our life, we're going to see that.
Growing up, we were always told we're going to see flying cars too, but we're a hell of a lot closer to, vehicles driving themselves and flying cars.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And all the AI stuff that they got AI kind of integrated with it now, and AI is it's in its infancy.
Oh my gosh.
It's gonna explode. If you're an investor, invest in AI.
It's going to be wild to see where it goes. I know there's a lot of talks on regulation and all this other stuff. I'm not very smart when it comes to AI, but, there's already a small portion of AI in everything we do right now anyways, whether it's our phones or anything. You got Chat GPT.
I use it all the time.
I use it for work. If I'm going to make a post about, even the snowstorm, I type in there, give me information on what to tell people about, what you can do to winterize your house or your vehicles, whatever. I use it like the Chat GPT all the time because it spits out something that, you can read. It's smart.
Yep.
It's just small things like that. And, they're already doing chips in people's brains and shit now.
Neuralink.
Yeah, Neuralink. So yeah, the AI thing, that's going to be, there's obviously got to be some regulation on it.
A lot of people are scared of it. They think there's going to be machines that take over the earth and, annihilate all the people, which I guess maybe that's a possibility, but I think
that's stuff they've seen in movies.
Yeah, that's movie stuff. I think that it's going to slowly be integrated into our society, just like every other technology that we've ever had. They probably thought that cars were bad whenever people were selling horses. It's
Yeah.
like those things are gonna fume you out of there. It'll kill you in 2 years. So
Yeah.
I'm sure there was people saying that kind of shit back then too.
I'll stick to my horse.
This is if you don't evolve, you die. That's your two options. So you have to keep evolving, and it's just the next evolution involved. I mean, that's what's next. AI is huge.
Yep, AI and Musk getting us to Mars.
Yeah, I think that's a little overzealous. We'll see if that happens. It's going to be pretty tough.
Yep. But all right, well, I think we ought to take a break here.
Sounds good.
We'll jump back into it. And we are back. So, you hear Canada is going to be the 51st state, in the United States?
Yeah, I hope so. I love Canada.
Never been to Canada.
Oh, it's beautiful, man.
I've never been. You do a lot of fishing up there?
Yeah. Used to go up there every year. I haven't been up there for a few years, but we're going back there in July of this next summer on a fishing trip. But one of my favorite places to go. Beautiful. Lakes everywhere.
What kind of fish do you go up there? And
Walleyes mainly what we catch. Just what we're trying to catch. We catch a lot of northerns and some smallmouth bass too, but walleye mainly. We fished around in Minnesota and stuff for a few years, and there's a place that some of my buddies go, every year up there. But here, if you catch an 18-inch walleye, that's a pretty good walleye. Where up there, you're catching 27, 28-inch walleyes. So,
that's
it's a big difference in Canada. And you'll cook into some 40-inch northerns and stuff, and it's a lot of fun.
That's crazy.
I've never had a day up there where you just go out there and you can't find the fish. Like, we can always find fish there. Almost no matter what the weather, anything. It's just phenomenal.
Yep, that's one thing I have yet to get to do is go up anywhere and try to walleye fish. That's one of my bucket list deals.
Walleye is some of the best fish there are to eat. They're delicious.
I've never ate walleye either.
Real white, fluffy meat. They're awesome. Northern's actually pretty good too, but they're kind of bony. You got to know how to fillet them right.
Yep. Well, maybe one of these days I'll get my ass up there.
Yeah, hopefully you won't have to have a passport to go up there.
Yeah, no joke. I got a passport. But it seems like we may not have to have that anymore going up there.
That'd be pretty cool.
But yeah, one thing I found that was interesting, obviously it's probably not going to happen.
No.
I'd say it's less than 1%.
If something like that was to happen, it wouldn't happen just like, okay, we're going to be the 51st state. Like, it'd be a process.
Oh, for sure.
It would take probably years.
I think the issue is, I see it on a lot of posts that, people didn't like the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, in which we found out
just resigned.
He's stepping down after they have an election of the next Prime Minister. But one thing I found interesting that I did not know was around 80% of Canadians live within a 93-mile radius of the U.S. border.
Yep, they're all right there.
I had no idea.
Yep.
I had no idea, with Toronto, I guess Montreal, all of them. I just didn't realize they were that close to the U.S. border.
I mean, they're basically Americans. So, why not go ahead and make it the 51st state? And I don't know if you met any Canadians. They're super nice people.
I don't think I've even met a Canadian. I listen to some Canadians' podcasts.
Their accents are pretty cool.
And I follow a few Canadians on social media. But yeah, I did not know that they were that close to the U.S. border. One thing that would be cool, though, if they did join the U.S., is the natural resource of oil.
Yeah.
Different things like that. I guess the border would be a hell of a lot better. We wouldn't have to worry about illegals coming into our country or going into Canada.
And it would kind of secure our northern borders too, because we could help protect them from Russia.
Yep. We just as well go ahead and get Mexico in too.
Why not?
we still need a border down there though.
Let's get Canada first.
Maybe that one would take a lot more work, I think.
We'll put that kind of on the back burner.
But yeah, no, I think it was funny that I guess Trump had a meeting with Trudeau at Mar-a-Lago in Florida after finding out that he was going to be the next president, and pretty much told him that we're going to tariff the shit out of him because I guess we're getting kind of screwed on the import and export of goods.
And they're just letting fentanyl flood across the border from Canada too. That was a big thing that Trump was against.
I just don't understand as a country why that would be okay. You know, with the whole immigration thing. You know, I want people to come to the country. We were founded on immigrants.
Yeah.
But why just have an open border? You know, there's people getting murdered, women getting raped, you know, kids getting sex trafficked.
Yep. Separated from their families.
I don't know why anybody in their right mind would think that's okay.
No, we definitely got to get the border under control. I mean, I don't feel like the Canadian border's, you know, as big a deal as Mexico. There's a lot more people coming through in Mexico.
Yeah, and it was just so bizarre during that time that, you know, everybody was up in arms about, you know, the border, and then you had people in office saying that, you know, there's not anybody coming over, you know, it's not. But we're seeing literally people are going down there, videos of people.
You can watch them every single day.
Coming in.
Yeah.
I do think it was funny. I did see a video. I guess there's a golf course down there along the border, and I guess there was people on the Mexico side that were watching a guy teeing off, and he hit a golf ball at the tee box, and they were all cheering for him as they were behind the wall. But, yeah, I mean, just letting people come in, flood in, and, you know, a lot of them undocumented. You don't know if, you know, they're trained in the military. You know, you don't know who these people are. There shouldn't be anybody undocumented here.
No, it doesn't matter who you are or where you're from when you come into America. You should be vetted. I mean, that should just be part of the process. Like, why would we not want that? We definitely want people in the country from other places. Like, that's what America's founded on. You know, we wouldn't have nothing if it wasn't for that. For
For sure.
From China to Mexico, Canada, I mean, Africa, like there's so many things that those people who have been immigrants have done for America. We wouldn't be the same. So you can't say you don't want that. Who's an American anyway? Like, what do you call an American? Like
someone who was born here.
Everybody that came here was an immigrant.
Yep.
So like, we're a country of immigrants. That's what's made us the greatest country on the planet.
For sure.
So you have to allow some of that, but you can't allow these people that are, you know, murderers, rapists, killers, drug dealers across the border. And there's no policing of it right now. You can just walk across if you want.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me. And, you know, they're talking about like tens, if not hundreds of thousands of kids nobody can find them.
Yeah, there's
gone. You know, children.
And you know
nobody knows where they're at.
They're either dead or some kind of sex trafficking deal or.
Yeah. And you know it's bad when people like in Chicago and New York City are pretty much going to these city council meetings in these big cities and are like, you've got to get these immigrants out of here.
Yeah, you got to stop.
You know, they're ruining the cities. And I'm not saying all of them are ruining the city. You know, it's just some of them are killing people.
A lot of people are coming over just looking for a better life, which, I mean,
you can't blame
if you were in Mexico, that's what you would do too. You know, you can't blame them. But they still should be vetted when they come across the border. Make sure they're not.
You know, and I think people who have came here and done it legally, and I know it can take forever, you know, with our immigration process. I know a guy who lives in this town. He met a woman over in the Philippines, and it literally took months and months and months after paying all this money to get a green card for her to be able to come over here and live and get her citizenship. Mm-hmm. And it takes a lot of money, like thousands of dollars to get somebody over here. But there's got to be a process, and maybe we can kind of figure out a better process and maybe less expensive to come over here. But you can't just let people run through the border and, you know, basically, I mean, they're taking people's jobs. You know, they're killing people. Mm-hmm. Lake and Riley was one of them.
Yep.
An illegal immigrant that was over here. Well, I guess illegal alien is what they would be called, not an immigrant, right?
Immigrants, legal.
Yeah, I mean, he killed her, and she was, you know, a college student, and, you know, I know the mom came out and has talked at some of the hearings and stuff up in D.C. about the whole situation, and it's like, how can you look in a mother's eye and disagree with her on the immigration policy.
And I think that is why it was such a big issue in this election term, because people do care.
Yep.
People are standing up to this. And back to kind of the Canada thing. I'm a big fan of Jordan Peterson. I don't know if you watch Jordan Peterson much, but he was from Canada originally. He now lives in America.
Yep.
Because Canada has just bought into this whole woke, liberal bullshit. And the country in the last 7-8 years has just been on a steep decline, even more than the United States through this last while.
Didn't Canada strip Jordan Peterson of his degree?
Yeah, he can't teach up there anymore.
Yeah, his doctorate or something like that.
Yeah, because of the things that they cited in the lawsuit was, or why they took his license away, was basically they just wrote on there that he was on the Joe Rogan podcast, and all the information he shared on there was against their beliefs, basically.
So, and that was enough for them to be able to do that.
There was a thing in there because Jordan, there was a post on Facebook of like a fat model, an oversized model. I don't know what you call them, but there was a fat model on there, and he said it was talking about how beautiful he was, and he just reshared it and said "not beautiful" on there.
Is what Jordan Peterson did.
So that was another thing he got in trouble for. That was one reason they took his license away. And everybody that they cited in the lawsuit against him, none of them were his students or somebody that he was seeing. It was somebody that knew nothing about him, that just read some shit on the internet. And they took his license away from it. And he's like one of the most respected, that there is. Like everybody loves Jordan Peterson.
I don't think he probably cares, because he's doing way better in the podcast world than
he's killing it.
I mean, it's still pretty shitty for him to lose it that way.
But Canada was bad enough. He left.
Yeah.
He was like, I'm done.
Yep.
And I think that's kind of the reason they're in the shape they are, is that woke ideology. It's not working. People
I know
like,
a lot of
right,
businesses
we're done.
And a lot of wealthy people have left Canada over all this.
Yeah.
So I don't, that's the thing. Like, we can sit here and talk about it. We've kind of lived it the past 4 years, where there's been so much crazy shit going on.
Yeah, world's going nuts.
But yeah, what do you do?
Yeah, I mean, all you can do is just try to get back to as normal as you can. I mean, it's not the first time that we've been through something like this. I mean, think back in like the 60s and 70s, when the big, drugs kind of took over. And if you look at the difference between 1950 to 1970, there's a huge difference, I'm sure that the people that were adults in the 50s that lived in the 70s probably think that those people were going crazy too.
Yeah, probably.
So it's just it's a phase that we go to, but you just got to get back to, like I said, common sense thinking. And I think that's what people are doing. They're like, all right, we're done with this shit.
Yeah. No. Well, I mean, you can't blame people for thinking that.
No. I think we've done it long enough now that people are just realizing, like, oh shit, this isn't working.
Yeah, and they've kind of seen why it's not going to work.
Yeah.
Kind of what, But anyways, what kind of animals can we hunt in the new 51st state?
Man, I don't know, some moose.
Well, we could go hunt some moose.
Have you ever seen a moose in real life? So the first time I went up to Canada fishing, we were up there, and I think I was 19 at the time. And in Canada, you could drink at 18. So we went up there and we went out to the bar after we went fishing.
Trashed.
We were getting shitty. And we met some people up there, and one of them was a bartender there. And I'm still friends with her. But we went out, and she took us like out on the back roads, like the back parts of Canada that we didn't know anything about. And we've seen a moose then. And I always thought like moose was, similar to the size of like a horse or something.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Way bigger.
These son of bitches are huge. They are monsters. The first time I seen them, I was like, oh my God. I can't imagine the people that are hunting them with bows and they get within 10 feet of them and shoot them things. It's like a damn truck coming at you.
Jeez.
They're so tall. It's incredible. They're so much bigger in real life than what you think.
I wonder what that would do to a vehicle or pickup truck.
Oh,
Hit
my.
One of them at 65.
Total it. I mean, shit, you can
It'd be
hit
just like an elk.
you hit a fucking coon in a vehicle now and total it. So
Yeah, that's true. That is true. But yeah, 51st state, we'll be going on some moose hunts and walleye fishing without a passport.
yep.
We'll be living a big
No,
time.
I'm all for it. How do you feel like, because Canada is they have universal health care system that, for everybody.
Yep.
And I've talked to my friend up there in Canada. One of the times I was up there, and I just asked her, like, how do you like the healthcare system here? Because, I've heard nothing but bad things about it. And everybody says that America's is better, but, what is your thoughts on the healthcare system in Canada? And she's like, it's great. She's like, I love it. I haven't had any problems with getting anything that I need to get or seeing any kind of doctor that I need to see, specialists and stuff. I have read on there that there is some longer waiting time on some specialist stuff, if it's not like life threatening. So that's just what it says. She says that she hasn't had any problems with it all. She loves the healthcare system.
So if they became a 51st state, I'm sure they would lose that really fast.
Yeah, for sure. That was one of the things that it was said. That I've read is that it would pretty much take over all the American policies on insurance.
So back to that. So they have the universal health care, and so do we have better treatment here? As far as like doctors and specialists, or is there even a way to gauge that?
I don't know. I don't know how you'd even gauge that, really. I think that it's not like they don't have good access. It's not like in Mexico,
Yeah,
they have good access to good doctors up there. Like you said, there's 80% of them that live within 90 miles of the United States. They're basically Americans.
I wonder if there's any polls out there on what Canadians think. Would they want to be a 51st state?
Yeah,
I would have to almost say no.
I don't know. I'm sure a lot of them,
Maybe
wants to.
Maybe after the prime minister they just had, they're probably like, hell yeah, we would love to leave. But, with Biden here, I don't know if you would want to leave. Canada.
They're gonna have pride in who they are as Canadians. They're not gonna want to be Americans, and it's probably never gonna happen. We're just bullshitting about it. But Canadian people love American people.
Well, vice versa.
Yeah,
too.
we love Canada too. So it's like it couldn't be a bad thing, but at the same time, and they got their indigenous people up there too, that I'm sure they want to have their own thing. And I know they have different rights up there too than indigenous people do, than you're a regular citizen. So like, if you're in their territory, they don't have like hunting seasons or anything. They can kill whatever they want, whenever they want to kill it, with whatever they want to kill it with. They basically have their own laws, all that kind of stuff, which totally understandable. It's great. Like that's your heritage,
That's your life.
We did the same thing to the Native Americans here, which is really shitty. One of the biggest stains on American history.
Oh, for sure.
So as much as they can keep their culture alive, they're probably going to try to keep it alive, and part of that's being Canadian. So I would say they're not going to want to merge.
Yeah, they're not going to want us to ruin what they have too. Like
No, we just got to figure out the trading situation and get it figured out where it works for both parties.
Because I read something like the world's third largest oil. They've got a lot of oil as far as a resource in Canada, and
Canada's huge.
It's gigantic. And it's crazy that the population, which I guess the further you go north, the rougher it gets.
Hard to live, yeah.
But it's crazy that there's so little population there compared to what we have here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the weather's just, it's hard once you get up there very far to live. Like where we were fishing at, I think it was like, let's say 4 or 5 hours into Canada. And it's called Lac Seul. And when we would go up there, we usually went up there the first week of August, and it wasn't nothing to have days that were high of 50. It would be cold there sometimes.
August?
Yeah, like it would. When you went out in the mornings to fish, like you had a coat on and you were bundled up and you were cold. But as soon as the sun came out, it was okay. But
imagine the winters up there.
The temperature is so much different than it is here. You don't have to deal with mosquitoes and stuff.
Yeah.
That part's nice.
You won't have to deal with mosquitoes and ticks and all that other stuff.
And the wilderness up there is so thick. It is insane. You see these great big ass moose, and you're like, how do they even travel through that? You could have something 12 feet in front of you, and you don't even know it's there.
Yep.
That is a great wilderness. Like it is untouched, a lot of it.
I need to go up to Canada and see Canada for myself sometime. But that would be cool to, go up there and not have to have a passport, which, if you have a passport, you can go up there. I don't think there's any regulation. You just can't have a felony or anything like that. Which is crazy because they'll let illegals in, but as far as an American going across the border, they're gonna vet the shit out of you.
Yeah, I mean, every time I went up there, you have, I would say probably half of the time I went up there, we've had their vehicle searched. When you cross the border, they'll have you get out, take your bags out, open your bags up. They'll go through all your bags. You put your bags back in there, and you're on your way. But it's a little bit of a process. You're there for half hour extra getting your stuff checked through, which isn't that is fine with me
for sure.
That's what you should be doing.
But you should be doing that for everybody.
Yeah, you should be checking me to make sure I'm not bringing anything bad in your country or from Canada back into America, because we've been checked the other direction too.
Yeah,
I've actually been checked more coming into Canada than I have into America, actually, by probably quite a bit.
Going into Canada?
Yeah.
Yep.
Which says a lot. It's just insane. Anybody coming, you wouldn't just let anybody walk in your house.
Nope.
And America's our house. You got to protect it and protect its citizens. That's not what we're doing right now.
No, I need to get up here and see what it's all about. Catch some walleye.
Yeah. Plan it.
I need to do it.
We're going in July. I can't wait. It's going to be awesome.
You'll be up there ripping lips and sending me pictures, and I'll be sitting here. It'll probably be 100 degrees here. It'll probably be 65, 70 up here. You'll be living the life.
Like the second week of July, so it'll be perfect.
Right after the 4th. Well, speaking of hunting moose in Canada, how's your deer season been so far this year?
Well, it's kind of wrapping up right now. I mean, we're pretty much done. This year was weird. I would say, and even talking with you, like, this has been the weirdest deer season I can remember. I'm not sure what caused it or what's going on, but so the year started off, I had my number one hit lister. Was getting pictures of him, real regular. I've been following him for 3 years, so I had a lot of history with this deer. Probably had more pictures of him than any other deer. He disappeared for 2 weeks. And I was like, this is weird. He doesn't ever leave. So I went out and drove the creek and found him dead in the creek. 2 weeks, I think, before deer season started. And EHD, I'm sure, blue tongue. And then found another doe about 20 feet from him dead. Same thing, I'm sure.
What part of the creek? Because we have property that butt right up to each other.
Yeah.
Is this on the different farm?
No, this is on the new farm. It's probably, I would say, 3/4 of a mile down the creek from you. Right, okay. That big bend.
Right by like where all those rocks and stuff are?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. Just right past that. Yeah.
Gotcha.
There's a big rock our kids jump off of in the creek and play. Yeah, I found him dead, and then ended up I found 5 total dead this year in the creek.
How many bucks, how many does?
So I found 3 bucks and 2 does, 2 mature bucks. And the one was my number one hit lister, which, that's devastating when you go into season. When you've been following a deer for 3 years, it's
nothing worse than that.
Makes you sick. So started off like that, just started off weird. And our mature buck population has it's been terrible. And I think that EHG's got a lot to do with it. We've had a drought the last 2 years, which makes it even worse because, more of a drought, you got more standing water, which is more of a breeder of gnats, which is what passes it.
And the crazy thing is, with EHD, like you're talking about, we have one of the biggest creeks in Missouri that runs through us.
Yeah.
And, what are these other, everybody else has got to be seeing it too, with ponds and, some of these creeks that don't have water year round in them and have a stream running in them most of the time.
Yeah, I think that we probably are a little bit more in tune with what's going on our properties than a lot of people, I think, that, just kind of sporadically deer hunt. Like, I went out looking for this deer. Like, I knew where his home range was. I knew where he lived, and I found him pretty quickly. So I had pictures of that deer. Like I said, he'd been gone for 2 weeks. I had pictures of that deer 2 weeks before that at one of my food plots. He was fat, healthy, looked 100% fine. Nothing wrong with them. Nothing out of the ordinary. So it's not something like CWD where they, they'll waste away over a month months or months. Sometimes they'll get over it, but
Yep.
you know, they don't just waste away. It basically eats their brain is what I've basically heard. The blue tongue does. So usually you'll find them around water.
Oh,
that's where they usually die.
99% of the time you'll find them next to a water source.
Yeah. So, I memean, it was a rough way to start off the season. We didn't have high hopes coming in this year. I did have a few bucks on my radar, but it wasn't working out. We were seeing a ton of deer. We still got a shitload of deer. Like, there's deer everywhere. It's nothing to go see 20, 30 deer a night. But just the mature buck population was been devastated.
Well,
We've killed a lot of does.
EHD hits the mature bucks, the bigger bucks,
the
lot
worst.
harder.
That's what they say. But we've killed a bunch of does this year. We did get lucky, and my son killed a 150-inch 10-pointer. My son's 11 years old. You know, it's a good deer. You know, it's some respectable deer. Actually, 149 and some change, but 150 sounds cooler. So, say 150.
150-inch deer is a good deer.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good deer. And he was one I'd never seen before. It just, you know, one of them lucky deals in rut, which we don't see a lot of new deer showing up during the rut much on our properties the last few years. So we were very fortunate to get the deer. And I'm very thankful for the deer because it kind of made my son's season, and we put a lot of work into it. So, like, it is nice to get some rewards, but I'm about the chase. I like having one deer or two deer on my brain, and that's the deer I'm killing. And we've done that the past 5 years. So we had a really good run of doing that. So it was
streak got snapped this year.
Yeah, it got snapped, and it's eventually got to end. But
and Mother Nature, you know, you can't control her. You know, we go out and, you know, whenever you're talking about the chase, there's a lot that goes into it, whether it's food, you know, you're doing management of your woods, you're doing management of your ground, you know, you're doing everything you can to have a healthy herd.
Yeah.
And when EHD comes through, I mean, it totally
nothing
wrecks
you can do
it.
about it.
Yeah, and it wrecks it. And that's what sucks so bad, because you do so much on a piece of property to make them as healthy as possible. You know, you go in, you cut trees down that aren't mass producing, you know, acorns and stuff. You know, you're trying to optimize every piece of part of your property, and then whenever that comes through and it's nothing you can do about it, that's what sucks the worst.
Yeah, I put more work into our farm last year than I ever have. I did a lot of work to it, and I mean, I say work, but it's not work. I enjoy it. I'd be doing it. I'm going to do it anyway because I just like doing it.
For sure. Anymore, I enjoy doing the wildlife habitat management more than, you know, I mean, killing a deer is always awesome.
Yeah.
And you know, it's reward. You know, you get all the meat, you get to process all that stuff. You know, you have the stories to tell. But the land management side of it is getting, for me, you know, it's more rewarding for me to see, you know, a pile of 10, 20, 30 deer on a food plot late season when there's no other food source.
Yep.
And you're the sole provider for that.
Keeping your herd healthy.
Yep.
Yeah, so it was a weird year. I don't know. We did get lucky and kill that buck, but like I said, I put more work into it this year than I ever have, and it was just probably the least productive year I feel like I've had. But I feel like the killing, I've gotten to the point now, I've killed enough good deer, and my son's killed enough good deer. Like, the killing part is probably my least favorite part of the whole thing. You know, I love everything leading up to when you either release the trigger on that bow or pull the trigger on a gun. Like that.
Yep.
That's up to that point is my favorite, and then it's over, and it's like, oh man, you know, I've been watching this deer for 3-4 years.
It's a bittersweet
and now
moment.
it's gone.
Yeah,
and I'll never see him again. That part kind of sucks, but you know, the earth provides, and you know, you got to be good shepherds of your property and your herd, and
this is the way it's been since the beginning of time.
Yep. Yeah, and on our new farm, I say it's our new farm. We've had it for several years now, but you know, I just know, like, the Indians, the Native Americans that lived here. You walk around there and you get out there and you get yourself immersed in the woods, and it's like, I know I'm doing the same stuff they were doing, you know, 5,000 years ago here. And it's kind of cool. It helps you stay connected and shows you kind of what's meaningful and you know, what's important in life.
Yeah, and you know, for me, and I'm sure it's the same way for you and a lot of other people that go out and hunt and enjoy the outdoors, is there's only a few feelings of like peace that you get And one of them for me is just sitting in a deer stand, whether you're watching the sun come up and everything come to life, or you sit out till dark and you have animals that are either coming out to feed, coyotes howling, or everything else going to bed. It's there's you can't really explain it in words. The kind of connection you have with nature in that kind of setting.
If you haven't done it, you definitely need to experience it.
Even if it's just going for like a trail walk.
Yeah, and some people, they're not going to feel about the same way we do because it's what we like. But owning a piece of property that your relatives have owned, it's special, and you want to do everything you can to not lose that. I got my son's 11 now, and he loves to hunt. He's huge into hunting.
That boy talks more about deer and deer hunting than anybody I've ever met.
He's got a better resume so far than most men. Like he's killed some good deer, good elk. Like the kids, he's a hell of a hunter. He can age a deer better than most men. But we get out there and we get to talking, and it's just a connection there that you can't explain. It's almost spiritual. It's awesome. I love it. My cell phone doesn't work a lot of places on our property. And I'm glad it doesn't. I hope it never starts working there.
Yeah, because if you can get away from work and go out and hunt, not having any signal is huge, because then you don't have phone calls and text messages that you're going to get as soon as you get service.
Yeah.
The notification is going to be sitting there. It's just a way to kind of disconnect from your fast-moving life and kind of slow down a little bit, and that's one of the parts that I enjoy the most.
Now, I know your family's owned your property for a long time, too.
Yep. Grandpa bought it. I guess I would be third generation. And we have, I have a little bit different story than you do as far as a deer season this year. You said that you've seen a bunch of deer, just not any mature bucks.
Mm-hmm.
I have not seen any deer, whether it's a doe, a button buck, a spike, or a 4-point. My November was terrible. I seen one doe all November with like I said, button buck and a spike.
Hard
and
to
I
have
think a 4-point.
Hard to have bucks if you don't have does in November.
Well, and that's what's been so weird about this year is, late October I went on a hunt and seen 17 does. After that I didn't see but one. You know what I mean? And then you get to December. Now the cameras are picking back up because I have a late season food source.
Yep.
And 2-3-year-olds, not really any mature bucks, but they're all there still. So it's like November, they just hightailed it and went and laid down somewhere and didn't move.
And that's never happened in the previous, right?
That's never happened on that farm in particular, any year that I've ever hunted. So I'm 20, almost 28. So I've been hunting since I was 4 or 5. So from the time I can remember, I've never seen a November or late October, I've never seen a buck not chase a doe. This year I didn't see a single buck chase a doe. I didn't see a single buck bump a doe around, even sniffing the ground or anything.
Yeah.
It was a year like I've never experienced, and I hope I never experience it again. And
well, it's never happened in the past, but it's like you try to search for like what's the problem here? Like what could cause it?
We've done literally everything to the property you can do. We've done TSI work. We've put in bigger food plots. We've put in, we got 45 acres of rye in that bottom field.
And you let it rest too. It's not like you're out there every day.
And hunted very minimal.
Yep.
And the reason we hunted very minimal is because there was no deer.
You got a good creek that runs through it too, right?
Yep, got a creek that runs through it. See, like October, we usually try to kill several deer a year because usually the doe population gets ridiculously high out there.
Mm-hmm.
October, there was one night I seen like 16 or 17 does, and I was like, okay, yeah, I'm going to have to shoot a couple and kind of get the herd back in line. November hit, nothing except one. Now, December, we're seeing like a group of 7 or 8, 9 does. It's like, why? You don't need to go out and shoot any of them because you got to have something for next year.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And that's what's been so bizarre is the amount of deer we haven't seen, and it's not overpressured. And I've talked to a lot of people. They've been seeing the same thing. Like, it's not just me. And I'm talking about people in other states, too.
Yeah.
They've all been seeing the same thing. And I don't know what it is. I know it's not CWD.
No.
It's not EHD. EHD isn't going to wipe out a whole herd. From what I can tell, walking the creeks, we haven't found anything dead. My neighbor hasn't found anything dead. So I really don't know.
The amount of deer on that farm that you've typically had, there'd be deer everywhere dead. It'd be super easy to find dead deer.
And right now, typically in a late season like this, with our late season food source, it's nothing for me to go see 40 deer. Mm-hmm. And so I haven't.
Where did those deer go?
I haven't been out, but just from the camera, there's got to be probably 15, 20 regularly hitting the cameras. And it's been so, I don't know. We have a thing in Missouri where farmers can get early, like summertime nuisance tags if a field is getting, overbrowse. I don't know if there's any farmers that got those kind of tags around me. If so, I could see that doing that to a population because it's such a dramatic effect on a population or a herd of deer.
You'd think you'd hear about something like that, though, if that was going on.
But, if they're out at night...
Do you know your neighbors very well?
I do that border us directly, but not, more to the west of us or to the east. If you have a big open field like that in the summertime, a lot of deer are going to go to that. They herd up. They're in a big group. That's when bucks are in a bachelor group too. So I don't know if any of those farmers got nuisance tags. I know nobody bordering us directly did. But that's, there's a lot, that's a big ridge that runs a long ways.
Yeah.
There could be a lot of deer just going on. I really don't know.
I wonder if they sensed something or smelled something that they didn't like there.
I don't think so, because nothing's changed.
I was trying to think if there was this is way out there, and I'm not saying this is the case, but I was thinking maybe if there was a mountain lion in the area or something similar that just they smelled it, didn't like it, and left.
I don't know because
it's possible. It's definitely possible.
We've had mountain lions out there before. Mm-hmm. I've personally seen one. This has been years ago, but the deer didn't leave.
Yeah, it didn't leave then. So
yeah,
weird.
I don't know. It's been a really weird year.
Tell me about this mountain lion story. Let's hear about it.
The only thing I'll tell you is it was early season. It was about 700 yards away from me. I was looking at it through a pair of binoculars because I didn't know what it was. And as soon as I noticed what it was, I got down and left the stand 2 hours before dark. I was out of there. And I didn't go back hunting for like a month.
Oh, shit. Yeah.
And the funny thing is I was telling my brothers about it, and of course they're like, dude, you're full of shit. You have no idea what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. Have no idea. Well, come rifle season, one of my brothers went and hunted and was walking out at night, no flashlight, come walking up the hill and heard a god-awful, screaming sound, and basically told me that he'd never be back out there to hunt again.
Oh, shit.
And that was chance,
yeah.
But the thing about it is, we know they're there. It's just you very seldom ever see them. And I haven't seen any since.
I've seen
my neighbors have got pictures of them,
mm-hmm.
and there's been pictures of them all around. But it's one of those things.
I've seen one.
Yeah, if they know you're there, you won't ever see them.
Yeah. When there was me and my ex-wife and then one of my buddies were going fishing at a pond there in the middle of our property, and we pulled up to the pond and it took off running out the other side. And I watched it for probably 300 or 400 yards run up this through the middle of a bean field. It was really short at the time, but the first thing I noticed was that big tail whipping around.
Well, and the thing about it is, they're here. We have the perfect terrain for mountain lions. Mm-hmm. We have all the bluff systems.
All the deer they can eat.
All the deer. You've got, all these creeks that run through these bluff systems. You got these great big old bottom and top fields. It's a perfect place for a mountain lion to live. They've released them in the state, and maybe they've released them down south, but they're gonna migrate north.
Yeah.
Because a lot of those like to move up. You see videos and stuff of them every now and again. Iowa, Missouri, Illinois, Arkansas. See them get hit on the road, and I don't know. For the longest time, the conservationists told us that they're not in Missouri. They're not in Missouri. It's like, well, bullshit. We're seeing them. We have trail cam pictures of them, but they would always deny it. And now I think they've just kind of said, let it go.
I got a hell of a good story on mountain lions. I don't know if we want to get into it tonight or not, but
go ahead, let it rip.
Okay. Well, I don't know if you remember, but my parents they had a tack shop for saddles and tack and all that stuff. This called Cougar Country Outpost was the name of the place. And the whole reason that it was named that was because we had horses, and one morning we go out to feed the horses, and two of them are down in the middle of the pond and won't come out of the pond. It's a shallow pond, so they can stand up in it, but they're out in the middle of this pond and won't come out of there. We finally get them. We go out there and get them, take them up to the stall, and this horse has got claw marks all over its ass from something grabbing it like this and tearing down. Claw marks, not from a dog. This was obviously not from a dog
or a bobcat.
Yeah, or a bobcat or something like that. And the horse ended up. We had the conservation came out and looked at it and basically said, yes, this is a cat. There's not the way that these claw marks are. It's because the cat's got retractable claws. Mm-hmm. So they were like, this is obviously a cat. And then
so they confirmed that it was a mountain lion.
Well,
okay, we're not to that point yet.
At first, so when the conservation first came there, which is probably just a local guy, he came there and he was just like, yeah, it was a cat.
What year was this?
This has been, I'm going to say this was 20 years ago.
20?
Like I was in my teens.
Okay.
But the horse ended up dying. It ended up colicking and dying. One of them survived it that had claw marks on it. But
so both of them had claw marks on them?
Yeah. Yeah. And it was the conservation. He thought that it wasn't really, it was more just kind of playing with them. It wasn't even really trying to kill them. But the horse ended up dying. And then they went and searched kind of the property where they were on, and they found a track. They found a cat track, a big cat track. Mm-hmm. And they took a plaster mold of it and then basically destroyed it. Wow. It's basically what they did. And then that's kind of that's why it was called Cougar Country Outpost.
I'd never asked you why there's that sign, because there's a sign that
with the big cougar painted on it. Yep. And that's why it was called that, was because of that ordeal. But then later on they had a big post in the newspaper about it, that it was a pack of wild dogs.
On that, of your all's horse?
Yeah, that's what they said. What caused it was a pack of wild dogs in the newspaper article. And wasn't no truth to it at all. And that first conservation agents that came there, that's back when they were saying that there were no mountain lions in Missouri. Yep. That there definitely was not mountain lions in Missouri. That was all a conspiracy theory. Now everybody knows they're here now.
If only we had Facebook back then.
Yeah, you think that you think
I know your dad's been in Facebook jail. I don't know how many times. Can you imagine him on that?
He'd be definitely kicked off. Yeah, but it was. I mean, I don't know how long now that mountain lions have been confirmed in Missouri from the conservation, but it's probably been 10 years, 12 years, 15 years,
maybe 10 years.
Yeah. So at that time, that had been 10 years before. You're not going to tell me that there was mountain lions there 10 years and there wasn't the mountain lions there 10 years before that.
They
obviously were. And you didn't have to be a damn conservation agent to look at these horses and know that it wasn't a dog.
Yeah.
It was obviously a cat.
A wild dog.
Well, a dog don't reach up and grab something like that anyway.
Yeah.
That's a cat thing.
For sure.
And they had the track. They had the track of it. Like, it was... They got a plaster mold of it. I don't know if it's not here anymore, but they took a plaster mold of it.
But they're never transparent with anybody on anything.
They didn't want to come out and say that there was mountain lions here.
No, they didn't.
They were scared to death that the people were going to flip out about it. So
they
tried to hide it.
They were probably the ones that released it.
Yeah, could have been. It might have had a collar on it. They might have been able to look and see that it was there. Yeah, it could have been a huge liability. That thing's got a collar on it, and I mean, they would have had to make that all that stuff good. That was probably $250,000 horse.
Yeah, for sure. It would have been. It would have been. For sure. That was going to be the next Triple Crown winner.
I'm sure it was a $500 turd. But
yeah, I don't know why they can't be more transparent literally on anything. But, well, I think that's going to about wrap up episode 2 here. Something to talk about podcast.
Yeah.
It was a fun one. We talked about anything and everything.
That's Corey came to me with the idea of starting something like this because we've had, just good conversations in the past just between me and him. And we're like, man, I think people would be interested in this kind of stuff. And we want it to be just like it's two dudes just sitting here talking.
Yep.
We're not trying to, sell you on anything or push any kind of ideology on anybody. We're just wanting to have a conversation and, maybe learn about some stuff. We're both, deep thinkers. We like to learn about different things and, just get and research different topics and stuff and try to bring you some good content.
Yep, for sure. We like to learn, and this gives us a reason to kind of research and take a look at some things and give our non-professional opinions.
Yeah, take all of ours with a grain of salt,
But all right, that's the wrap on episode 2. We'll try to shoot another video or another podcast at some point here within the next week or so, and get another one out for y'all.
If you made it this long, like, share, comment, all the things. I don't even know what it's going to be on, but yeah, I guess support it as much as you can so we can keep having fun doing this.
All right, y'all. Peace out.
Take care.